All right. Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today. And, well, let's just say we're about to get into the nitty-gritty of music contracts, you know, the kind that can either launch you into stardom or leave you in a real bind. We're going to be focusing on this pretty messy situation with Mercy Chinwo, a Nigerian gospel singer, and her former manager, Ezekiel ThankGod, who's better known as Eezeetee. Our source for all this is an article. It's called Mercy Chinwo Accuses Ex-Manager Eezeetee for Contract Fraud. Get ready for some altered documents, some serious financial accusations, and yeah, just a whole lot of drama.
Yeah, this is one of those cases that, really shows you how things can go wrong even when you think, everything's good between an artist and a manager.
Right. And what makes it even more interesting, they have a long history together, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Mercy Chinwo started out as Eezeetee's backup singer back in Port Harcourt, before her solo career really took off,
Wow, so there was a real foundation of trust there, at least in the beginning. Right?
Yeah, at least initially.
Which makes this whole situation even more, surprising, maybe. So walk me through this. Like, when did things start to get, complicated?
Well, they signed a management contract back in 2017, which seemed, pretty standard at the time. But then, after Mercy moved to Lagos in 2018, things started to change between them.
A change of scenery, huh? Sometimes that can really shift things. From what I'm reading, it seems like things took a pretty bad turn.
Yeah, according to the article, Mercy started feeling kind of uneasy about the contract she'd signed. Especially because, well, she didn't actually have a copy of it. She asked for one in 2020, but it wasn't until late 2022, like way after the initial contract had run out, that she finally got a copy.
Hold on, she signed a contract and she didn't even have her own copy. That's pretty risky, isn't it?
Oh, it's definitely unusual. It raises all sorts of red flags about, transparency and like whether there was a power imbalance right from the start. And this is where things get, well, really interesting. The contract she finally received, it wasn't the one she signed in 2017. It looked like it was from 2019, but like someone had messed with it, made it look like it was from 2017.
Altered documents. That's not just unusual. That sounds potentially illegal.
Yeah.
What did Eezeetee have to say about this, about the different contracts?
Well, that's the thing. There's no real answer to that. What we do know is that a lawyer from the firm that drafted the 2019 contract, they confirmed they were never there when it was signed. And they had no idea about any changes being made to it.
Wow, so we've got two contracts, one that's probably fake and a lot of unanswered questions. This is getting more and more intriguing. So what was different about this second contract? Why go through all that trouble to create a whole new one?
Well, this 2019 contract, it had some clauses that were, well, really troubling. The biggest one, it basically tried to give Eezeetee ownership of all of Mercy's music for life. Think about that. All your songs, everything you create, belonging to someone else forever.
That's huge. That would really limit her control over her own career.
Yeah.
Right? And what about her earnings? Wouldn't that affect her future earnings too?
It would put her in a really vulnerable position. Basically, she wouldn't really own her creative work anymore. It could make it hard for her to, make deals in the future or even try different things with her career.
We're talking about potentially millions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
And not just that, but like her artistic freedom too. It's no wonder she's fighting back against this. I wonder, what does the law say about clauses like that? Could a contract like that actually hold up in court?
That's a good question. Whether these lifetime ownership clauses are legal, it's often debated. It really depends on the details of the contract and the laws in that specific place. But even beyond the legal stuff, it just raises ethical questions, right? About exploitation and power imbalances in the music industry, especially.
For sure. And it's not just about the ownership issue either. This article also mentions some financial stuff like discrepancies and maybe even misconduct. Let's dig into that next, shall we?
These terms, the ones we talked about, they might be a big part of why there were money problems later on.
Yeah.
The article says that Mercy, she accused Eezeetee of messing with the reports, the ones from the digital platforms, and holding back her share of the earnings.
So he was cooking the books to keep more money for himself? That's a pretty serious accusation. Is there anything to back that up?
Well, during investigation, they found a difference of, get this, $274,000 in Mercy's earnings, which means a whole lot of money was just, missing. Probably went somewhere else without her knowing,
$274,000. That's a lot of money, especially for an artist who's still on the rise. What did Eezeetee say about all that?
He said he was holding on to it to, prevent mismanagement, make sure everything was accounted for properly.
That doesn't really, it doesn't sound very convincing, does it? especially with those altered contracts and all that. It makes you wonder if he was trying to, like, control her finances on purpose.
It's possible. It really makes you think about a manager's responsibility, right? To look out for their clients' money, do what's best for them, not being open about all that money he was holding back. It just makes everything seem even more suspicious.
Yeah, transparency is so important when it comes to money, especially in a relationship that's supposed to be built on trust. Makes you think, was this just about the money, or was there more going on? Something else that led to their relationship falling apart?
That's a really good point, and it brings us to another part of this whole thing that's, well, pretty disturbing. The article mentions that Mercy accused Eezeetee of verbal and emotional abuse, like he was using threats and trying to intimidate her to control her career.
Wow, that's really sad to hear. Especially since they knew each other for so long, they had that trust in the beginning. How could that kind of abuse, how could it have affected Mercy?
Emotional abuse can be really harmful, especially in a professional setting where there's already that power dynamic, you know? It can really hurt an artist's confidence, make them hold back creatively, and make them feel trapped in a bad situation.
It just goes to show that success, no matter what field you're in, it shouldn't come at the cost of your well-being. Makes you think, if all this is true, why didn't she say something sooner?
That's a good question, and it's a tough one. When someone's being abused, it can be really hard for them to come forward. They might be scared of what will happen or feel alone. It can be incredibly difficult to speak out. It's important to remember that everyone reacts differently to abuse, and it takes a lot of courage to ask for help.
Definitely. We need to create an environment where people feel safe to come forward without feeling judged or scared. So with all this going on, what happened next? Did they try to work things out?
Well, they tried to, at first, after they found out about the money problems. Eezeetee admitted about the 2 contracts, and he apologized publicly. For a bit, it seemed like maybe they could fix things peacefully.
An apology is a good start, but you know what they say? Actions speak louder than words. Did he actually do anything to make things right?
Well, this is where things get a little crazy. Instead of following through on his apology, trying to reach a settlement, Eezeetee got himself a new lawyer and filed a lawsuit against Mercy and another artist from his label, Judikay.
A lawsuit? That doesn't really sound like he wanted to make things right, does it? What was the lawsuit even about?
They haven't said publicly what it's all about, but it definitely makes things worse, Makes you wonder what Eezeetee's really trying to do. It almost seems like he's trying to stop Mercy from talking,
That's a scary thought. This lawsuit, it could be his way of intimidating her, controlling what people hear about this whole thing. It's like that power dynamic we talked about, it's still there.
Exactly. Filing a lawsuit, it can be a way to control things, put pressure on someone, especially if they're not in a position of power. Legal battles, they can drag on forever, cost a lot of money, and really take a toll on you emotionally.
This whole situation has been full of twists and turns, hasn't it? From a good relationship to accusations of fraud, abuse, and now a lawsuit. This story is definitely not over yet. But before we get into what's happening now and what could happen next, let's take a moment to think about what this all means, the bigger picture.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, hasn't it? This whole thing with Mercy Chinwo and Eezeetee. Broken trust, accusations of, some pretty serious stuff. And this fight for control, creative control. It's a story that I think a lot of artists, especially those just starting out, can really learn from.
It really makes you realize how important it is for artists to protect themselves. Be proactive about it. In the music industry especially.
Yeah.
You can't just trust your manager or label blindly, You have to really understand what you're signing, what those agreements mean, and look out for your own interests.
It's all about being empowered, right? Taking charge of your own career and not being afraid to ask those tough questions, even if it feels a little awkward. Exactly. And that means getting your own legal advice too. Having a lawyer who knows the music industry inside and out, it can make a huge difference. They can help you figure out those complicated contracts, make sure you're getting a fair deal, and protect you from situations like this.
It's like having someone in your corner who knows the game,
Yeah.
Someone who can fight for you, for your rights. But beyond the legal stuff, this case really highlights a bigger problem, doesn't it? These power dynamics that can exist between artists and the people who have influence over their careers.
Absolutely. If what Mercy's saying is true, it shows how those power dynamics can be used against artists. Making them feel like they can't speak up, controlling them, even abusing them. It's a reminder that no matter how successful or famous you are, that kind of treatment is never okay.
It's a wake-up call for the whole industry, I think. Yeah. We need to create a culture of respect, transparency, accountability. where artists feel safe to speak up, if they're being taken advantage of.
Couldn't agree more. It's about leveling the playing field, making sure artists have a voice, that their rights are protected, and that their well-being comes first.
So what advice would you give to artists who are listening to this? Maybe they're just starting out, or maybe they're already in the industry, and they're feeling a little, disillusioned by all this.
I'd say the most important thing is to educate yourself. Learn about your rights, find mentors who've been there, done that, and build a strong network. Surround yourself with other artists and people who support you.
And trust your gut. If something feels off or a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. It's better to walk away than to get stuck in a situation that could hurt your career or even you as a person.
Exactly. Your talent, your voice, they're precious. Protect them and never compromise who you are just for a deal.
Well said. As we wrap up our deep dive into Mercy Chinwo's story, it's clear that there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. It's a reminder of the challenges artists face, how important it is to protect themselves, and how much we need a fairer, more respectful music industry.
And for all of you listening out there, keep asking questions, keep pushing for change. The music industry needs more artists like you, informed and empowered, to create a better future for everyone.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep fighting for what you believe in.